Hey Taylor,
Hi.
thanks for letting me interview for my
Of
class.
course.
Could you start by telling your job title?
Yes, I am a kindergarten teacher.
Awesome. Is that something that you thought you'd be doing?
Absolutely not. I started going into Truett for admissions, and then about halfway through, I was like, or no, I think it was like the end of freshman year. I was like, well, I don't want to do missions, so what can I do? And I had done a job as a secretary for an elementary school my last 2 years of high school, and I was like, well, I know a lot about that, so let me just get my teaching degree. And then the further I got on into that, I realized, like with student teaching and things, I realized that wasn't really my calling, but it is for this year, so.
Awesome. Can you describe like what your day kind of looks like with your class?
Yeah, so I get to school at about 6:30. My kids get there at 7. We start out, we have a computer program that they have to do through the state. It's called iRead. So they do the first 30 minutes of that while they eat breakfast. And then we go straight into our phonics lesson, and we do groups, and that all takes about 3-ish hours depending. Then they go to electives, which is either PE or art, and we have our planning time. So we'll kind of meet with our academic coach and just kind of talk about like ways to improve our lessons and things like that. And then after they come back, we do half an hour of reading, and then we go to lunch, recess, and then we come back from that and we do the rest of the day is math and then science and social studies.
Gotcha. What are some of the requirements that you needed to get in order to become a teacher?
So it's changed since I've done it, but we had to go through, I believe it was 1 year of student teaching that you're required to go through. I student taught my junior and my senior year. So we got my bachelor's in education, and then we took the GACE at the beginning of our program, and we had to pass it in order to exit our program. And then we had to do Ed TPA, but they just recently got rid of that requirement. And then, yeah, I got my license.
Awesome. Is this something that you would encourage like high schoolers or maybe college students to think about doing?
I think if it's your passion, absolutely. I think if it's something that you're not passionate about and you can't find the joy in it, it's changed. Like the public school system is definitely a lot different. But if it's something that you're passionate about, absolutely pursue it.
Awesome. Is there any like positives or maybe negatives about your job?
I think the positives, the school that I'm with, it's a very high poverty school, so a lot of the kids don't get that nurturing at home. And I think one of the biggest positives for me is being able to go into the classroom every day and be the caring and the nurturing support that these kids don't get at home every day.
Right.
The negatives, right now, especially in public schools, I can't speak for private schools, but there's a lot put on teachers, a lot of responsibility that just continuously gets added on, and we don't really have a lot of additional support. So that causes us we only get paid for 8 hours, but we tend to work a lot more than that. I took a lot of my work home. I stayed a lot of late nights. And, it's worth it when you're thinking about the kids, and it's worth it if it's something that you're passionate about, but at the same time, I do wish there was a little bit more support on administration and like state levels.
Right. Did you guys see any effects with COVID in the room or?
Yes, my class in particular was quarantined 3 times. So my whole class had to be out for 2 weeks, 3 times. That was 6 weeks of instruction that they lost, which really pushed us back a lot. And I feel like it really pushed my kids' learning back a lot. Not only because they weren't getting 6 weeks of instruction, but also because when they're that young, there's so much adjustment that comes back in. Like when they come out of the class, from being out of the classroom for 2 weeks and then have to come back in, it almost takes half a week just to readjust them back into being in school and learning to. And another thing too was because I taught kindergarten, and last year COVID was a lot more prevalent than it is now. A lot of them didn't go to preschool. A lot of them didn't go to daycare or anything like that. So they had no structure, and they didn't know how to function in a classroom and things like that, which is stuff that they typically learn in pre-K that they were having to learn in kindergarten that we were having to teach them. So that added on to their delayed academic involvement as well.
So it sounds like that you had a lot of like social kind of development that you had to work with too.
Yeah.
Since they didn't have that
Yeah.
connection, obviously, with people.
Yeah.
Because of COVID.
Yeah.
Is there something that you feel like you learned from teaching that you never, expected to learn?
I think just the compassion level. A lot of times, like with little kids, I think we tend to have, some of us, not all of us, some people really are called to work with little kids, and I think their compassion levels are a little bit different. But I think we tend to just be quick to get aggravated and quick to get agitated, and that was something that I felt like I was convicted by the Holy Spirit about. And that, there are things that go on at home, there are things that are going on personally that we don't ever get to see, and just because they're, not having the best day, it doesn't mean that they're a bad kid. It means that they're just, they may have a bad life, like at home. And, but also realizing that, when that pressure is constantly on you, you have to find outlets and you have to find ways to refill yourself, because it's a draining job. It can be very draining if you don't find those ways to replenish yourself.
So you did a lot of like self-care in order to help you, I guess, lower some of those stresses.
Yes. Yes.
What's something that you did for like self-care?
I read a lot during my planning period if we didn't have meetings. So our meetings were typically like every other week. And so during our planning period, if we didn't have meetings, I would just take that time to get in the Word, or either just to listen to some music or something, and just kind of isolate myself in the room and just take that time to just reset almost.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to share maybe about teaching that you feel like maybe like other people don't know about, or?
I don't know. Let me think. I think it really is a calling, and I think if it's not something that you're called to, it's not something you're going to enjoy. And I think that's what I found the most. I loved my kids, and I loved, the people that I worked with, but the job in and of itself, because I wasn't passionate about it, it was too much for me. So.
Awesome. I just wanted to ask, and this was your first year teaching?
Yes.
Awesome. Do you think you'll continue teaching?
Well, I'm getting my master's for counseling, so I think that that's probably the route that I'll take.
Okay. Do you see yourself maybe counseling like students, maybe like kids through kindergarten, through high school, because you kind of have like that background?
Yeah, I do feel more equipped for that. I've done some internships lately, and I feel like the kids are the ones that I relate the most with. But I definitely want to use it in ministry, so that pretty much entails every age group.
Well, thank you for letting me interview you today.
Of course.